Excellent to be talking to David Thomas of Safe Communities Portugal. And this is a wonderful opportunity and a very special opportunity for us to acknowledge the amazing work that David and the organisation have done, especially just recently. And also, David, an opportunity to find out a little bit more about you and your connection to Portugal. So thank you for agreeing to be a guest on the Resident podcast.
My pleasure, and thank you very much for the invitation.
Oh, it's lovely to see you. We were just laughing before, weren't we, that the Saharan sand might make us both sound a little croaky after this stormy weather as well. So bear with us and forgive us for that. How is life in the Algarve at the moment, post storm? How are things down there?
No, well, luckily we weren't affected by the main storms over the last few weeks. But there has been some flooding, and there were some trees down and things like that. But I mean, looking through the Algarve at the moment, anybody visiting here, I don't think would notice the difference, apart from, as we say, the sand this morning. So no, Algarve is fine.
Right. Let's talk before we talk about you and your own personal individual connection and passion for Portugal. Can we talk about Safe Communities Portugal, which began, I believe, as Safe Communities Algarve? How do you describe you and your relationship to it? And can you tell us a little bit more about how it began, please?
Well, it began in 2010. Unfortunately, there was a series of very serious robberies involving the victims being the foreign community in the Algarve. And this was done by gangs from overseas. And the problem was that nobody was used to this. It's very unlike the Algarve. And of course, people were very, very worried about it. So we approached the civil governor, a lady by the name of Isilda Gomes, who became, of course, the president of Portimao and now is in Europe. And she was likewise concerned, and we had a meeting with the GNR. And I put forward an idea about forming Safe Communities Portugal to act as a bridge, or act really to bring the community, the foreign community in particular, the GNR and the other forces, security forces, closer together. And that was the whole idea. And I have to say, we got absolutely splendid support. She was really upbeat. The GNR were very helpful. And because of that, we were able to develop fairly quickly.
Excellent. So you're a founder of that, and you remain to this day. I believe you're the board president of what became Safe Communities Portugal. How did it make that escalation or development from the Algarve into Portugal in general?
That's very interesting. I mean, at the time, we were focusing, as you say, right on the Algarve. But I suppose our reputation and interest grew in other areas of Portugal as well. So we approached the police, the GNR, the PSP, civil protection in Lisbon. We had a series of meetings, explained the work that we did. We got the support from the officials in the Algarve, and that was it. And then we signed, of course, a number of protocols that you have to do. And we developed and started holding seminars, which we had been doing in the Algarve, but also doing now in other parts of the Portugal as well.
Wow. Okay. So what form did that take? Was it like a road show? How are you performing this function?
Well, this was really very interesting, because if we go back about 12, 14 years ago, it was very unusual for the authorities to give seminars to the foreign community. And what we wanted to do is bring the different officials together. So GNR, PSP, everybody like that, civil protection, CEF as it was, tourism, all together on the same stage, which going back those years was seldom the case. So we brought everybody together. Everybody was delighted. They spoke in English. And it was the first time that most of the officials had spoken in English at a seminar. This is going back to that period of time, different now, of course, since they'd graduated from university or school or whatever. So it was really, really great. There's a fantastic atmosphere, and we got very good audiences. People were very, very interested in what their GNR commander was doing, for instance. What were the policies? What were the strategies? How they can report a crime? what they should do in land cleaning, all these different things. And we discussed those. And we went, in the first few years, we got about 40 or 50 different seminars in different parts of the country.
What great work. And maybe we could take a little detour there to examine the acronyms of the Portuguese police force. You mentioned the GNR, the PSP,
Yeah.
and there is the more I don't know, the office-based branch. But no, perhaps that's an unfair description. But the judicial police, the PJ.
Yeah.
Could you say a little bit? Could you decode those for us, David, as an expert? That would be really helpful to people.
Okay. Well, basically, you've got the GNR. The GNR and a paramilitary organisation, the Guardiana Police. So basically what we have is the GNR, they are responsible for 94% of the land mass of mainland Portugal, and about 50% of the population. The PSP are responsible for the big cities, or some of them are not so big, but for the remaining 50%. The judicial police judiciaria, are responsible for serious crime investigations, a bit like the FBI, or a bit like the FBI. It's a good way to put it. So it's a national organization. But of course, if you're reporting a crime, it doesn't matter. If you're a victim of a crime, you can go to any of those entities and report it, and it will be moved between the different ones depending on where the crime took place.
That's a really good and quick guide to the police forces of Portugal, because it's not obvious, is it? And they have very different uniforms and appearances as well. But thank you for breaking that down for us. And you mentioned civil protection, CEF as it was, which is now IMA. Civil protection we'll obviously talk more about, and then their incredible work that they've done just most recently. But I think it's fair to say, is it not, that the pandemic time was a moment when Safe Communities really came into its own and served the public brilliantly. You'd already established, I think, a connection between how the authorities work in Portugal and the foreign population, and what an amazing service to us as foreigners that the authorities were clearly giving. But the pandemic took it to a new level, as I recall, and Safe Communities just performed the most incredible act of public service at that time. What was that like for you? And could you describe those early days as that was coming in? And we knew nothing about what was happening, really, did we? We had to piece it together for ourselves.
It's very, very interesting time. Obviously, a time for many reasons a lot of us wouldn't want to go through again. I've been in the police in Hong Kong, and in 2002, we had what was called the SARS outbreak, which was very similar to a virus. And we guessed that I think through experience, we knew that when they had the outbreak of COVID in Wuhan in China, that this would spread. And because, we're in 2019, 2020 time, the connections were far greater, international connections were far greater than they were in 2002. It could spread more rapidly, and it did. So we started doing articles, writing articles in the newspaper, on our website, and on our Facebook, before the first case had arrived here in Portugal, because I think it was important to forewarn people. And at that time also, there was a great deal of misinformation. So we had to really try and allay people's fears and try and get the facts that we could put to the population. So we formed a team of volunteers. We formed a dedicated team. I think it was 16 volunteers, people with some relevant backgrounds, actually, and also people who do translation work, which we had to do. We connected with the authorities. We informed people, the civil protection and DGS, DGS, the health service, again, another acronym, in Lisbon, what we were doing. And it worked very well. It was very, very stressful. And of course, we were in unknown territory. But we did develop some good connections, particularly when it came to vaccinations, which is, could be a controversial subject, as it was at the time. But we got a great deal of support, because a lot of people came to us and say, how do I get vaccinated? Oh, I went to a vaccination station. I got turned away. What can we do? Well, we had to try and give answers to this. And luckily, by intention, we had quite a lot of contacts in government at the time, and we could get some of those answers. And particularly when it came to the vaccination program and the new head of the vaccination program, who was, of course, the naval logistics admiral, and he was splendid. We met him.
Did you? He was also running for president recently as well, wasn't he? But he was quite the strong figure that you might hope for in those sort of times, I think.
I think he was. I think he was ideal. That's my own personal opinion. Yes. He had been in charge of logistics. He knew how to plan. He knew how to deliver, and I think he did. And he brought Portugal. At one stage, we had the highest percentage of people vaccinated. And I truly believe that saved many lives.
And he, of course, is Enrique Gouveia Melo, is the gentleman we're talking about there, who you met during that. And that you were an absolute lifeline in that time, I think, in a time of a lack of information, misinformation, all sorts of things going on. And people were actually scared, basically, in a word. You were an incredibly calming and reassuring presence on social media. Had that always been the case? Presumably you started out, as the young people say, IRL, in real life, with the talks that you were giving. Did the road rise to meet your feet at that time with the pandemic using social media?
Yes, I think it did. I mean, we the growth of our Facebook was astronomical. It really was. And without in any way blowing our own trumpet or bragging, I remember one weekend we got over 1,000 inquiries. On travel advice. It was an issue that had come up. Yes. And now, luckily, we had a very strong team. Two members of that team are still with us, Fernando Gonzalez and Mike Evans. And really, it was the three of us, assisted by some others, who had to deal with a lot of the research, answer the questions. And one of the difficulties, and I think this is a difficulty that we still face sometimes in government, is in terms of communication. It's very easy to put out a decree law of 40 pages and expect that people will find what they want to find and understand it. It's extremely difficult.
Oh, you are bringing back memories. Decree law. That was it. That was in every report, pretty much, wasn't it? Decree law.
So what we did, luckily, I say on our team, we've got a lady, Fernanda Gonzalez, who lives sometimes in Lisbon, sometimes in Porto Alegre. She's in the travel industry, but she was very, very good. And she went through, together, we went through all these decree laws in terms of state of emergency, state of calamity. Yeah. What does it actually mean? Where are the salient points, the main points in that, which we need to bring out, the main points that people need to understand. So we summarize those, or she summarized those, and we put it out on Facebook. And that's what took so many hours every day. To get that out, and also translation of the health DGS, the health service guidance as well. So it was a demanding time.
And an incredible job you did, and unfortunately that great work was called, and the great team was called upon again in recent times. With the storms that have affected Portugal, the national disaster. I don't think it's unfair to call it that. And there you were again. You were my go-to organisation, as I think you were for many people. Well, absolutely, to find out what was going on, and you rose to the occasion again. And I think that's perhaps credit to the alliances that you'd already created. You know, this is a consolidation moment, wasn't it? And a reflection of all the good work that had gone before. You were able to present the information to people and support people in what, again, was a very difficult time for Portugal. What was your experience of that in this last, 6 weeks, a month of Kristin and associated storms?
Well, certainly the storms are relatively, that was a newer development, but we've been involved with major wildfires going back to 2017.
Yes.
So at that time, we had met with many officials, particularly the civil protection in Lisbon, and discussed things like quite openly with them, communication, how we're going to get the key messages across to the public. So that is our role now. A lot of our role is major disaster management. in terms of communication, and trying to take out the main points in the form of situation reports, updating them regularly, rather than doing 100 different bits of news every day. Well, let's have the main news in the morning, say lunchtime, and in the evening, and we will put it into different categories. And through the storms in the last week, couple of weeks, that worked well. And in terms of views on our Facebook page, let me see, the highest view was about 300,000 people in terms of our situation reports.
Yes.
And in 1 month, we got several million views from the work on the storm situation. I'm pleased that people did come to our page. What is so important is that when we're giving advice, that is government advice, and we try and put it in a way that people understand, and people need to be risk awareness and prepared, because if people are both of those, then the impact on people and property becomes less, and we can potentially save life and injury.
Well, you did an amazing job again, if I may say so, and thank you on behalf of many people. And I think with those hundreds of thousands of people who were finding out from you what was going on, that would have been Portuguese expats around the world as well, I think, trying to find out what's going on back home, as much as it was for people facing that difficulty head on here in the country. So thank you on behalf of many people, and to you and all of the team. Those volunteers, presumably, some of which you said, were there from the start and have continued to work with you. Thanks to all of them. If you could extend those thanks to the whole team, David, and perhaps say a bit about that. What is the structure these days? How does it work?
Sorry, the structure is we basically got a management team of 7 people. Let me see, 2 of them are right from the beginning. Nichko, an American living here, cybersecurity expert. Lilia Martins, she's a lawyer and works for local government now as well. And they have been there since the very beginning. We've got people like Mike Evans, who was in the tourist industry. He was very, very helpful and still is, and still works very energetically. Another a young lady, Antonia Vignolo, she is Italian. And she actually does work now for the UN, disaster risk reduction, a job she got very recently. But her work has become very, very vital in terms of our understanding of the effects of climate change and how it impacts on Portugal. New member, Martin Searle. We have a couple, Martin and Janet. They run, if you like, our office, and not the physical office. They work from home, but in Caldas de Reina and the Silver Coast, we've got an area there. Right. Yeah, we have. I have to mention my wife Jane, of course. She's been with me, and she's the chief administrator. I think I'll put it like that. That gives a lot of support, obviously. So we have a very strong team. And it works very well. So I'm very pleased to say.
Clearly, and how, given that that acknowledgement and our thanks to you, how can the support is generally one way, isn't it? Coming out of Safe Communities Portugal to the community, how can the community support you and acknowledge you and support you for the future?
I think 3 things. Always danger when you say 3 things. You start off with one, then you forget what the first one was.
Let's see.
We'll go for
yes.
Okay. Basically, first of all, by spreading the word. It's most important when we put information up. It's there for a reason, and if we can get key messages across, that is how people can help a great deal. The second thing is volunteers. Of course, we need volunteers. Volunteers who speak Portuguese fluently would be very, very helpful indeed, particularly for meetings and particularly with communication sometimes. And we have got that capacity, several languages, in fact, on our website, but sometimes the physical presence is quite important. So that's will be very helpful. And thirdly, I did get 3, is donations. We are a voluntary organization. We do not get paid. We don't expect to get paid, but we have got overheads. And and commitment like that. So if people can see their way to supporting our organization through donations, which they can do through our website, that's on our Facebook as well, we will be very, very grateful. It really is needed. And the money goes where it is needed as well. It goes maintaining our website and all the other major expenses which we have to incur, legal expenses and various things such as that. So those who have donated, we thank you a great deal. I really appreciate it. And funny enough, when we get a crisis, donations increase. There's no doubt about it. But we don't want to manufacture.
No, what a strange irony of humanity. Yeah, yes. And that is the website there, safecommunitiesportugal.com, as you can see scrolling on the screen. And those are the ways that you can support the organisation. David, is there anything else you want to say about Safe Communities? I think it's only right that we find out about the organisation. Is there anything else you think people need to know about it before we move on to talking more personally about you and your connection to Portugal?
No, I think basically we're there to serve the community. That is our purpose. And as I mentioned, it's really for people to understand risks, for people to be prepared and help protect life and property. That's what we're there to do. And we do this, as I say, through major disasters which happen from time to time. We have gone through various phases. We started with mainly policing. We didn't ignore that, of course, but then we went on to civil protection. Then there was COVID, and now we're more on the effects of climate change, extreme weather, and how it impacts on Portugal. And that is what we are trying to do, is trying to educate people and try and, for people to understand how they can enjoy their life in Portugal far more by being prepared, and therefore they can relax. And if something happens like an earthquake, okay, we know what to do, because you haven't got time to think about it at the time. So it's sometimes, unfortunately, it looks like all doom and gloom. And of course, the subject we're writing about sometimes, we don't enjoy writing about all the disasters that happen, but it has to be done. And people can relax perhaps a little bit more, understanding the practicalities of it. And that's what we're trying to do.
Well, you do a brilliant job of that. So making people aware of the risks and how to be prepared so that you can enjoy your life in Portugal, which brings us on very nicely to you enjoying your life in Portugal. Am I right in thinking you came here for a quiet life?
Well, a lot of people have said that. Well, what is very, very, very funny, when I left the Hong Kong police in 2005, I worked for a spell in Interpol, and then with the UN Office of Drugs and Crime. And it was that sort of time, I thought it would be a way of gradually easing off from the day-to-day work which I had in Hong Kong, and doing a little bit more. But in fact, it was becoming more stressful and the workload was going up. And I don't think we've really actually ever recovered from that with what we're doing now.
Well, I can imagine, if you had any thoughts of, yes, the sunny Algarve, I'll just take it easy. Safe Communities Portugal is taking care of that with your time and attention. What was your attraction to, how did you get to be here in Portugal and specifically the Algarve?
Okay. Well, the reason we came here, we'd been on holiday, going back in Hong Kong, we used to get extended holidays. That doesn't mean to say we're on holiday all the time, but it means we had to work for 3 years without a holiday, and then you got 3 months.
Okay.
So that gave us the opportunity to travel and visit the countries. And, we visited France, Spain, Italy, and Portugal as well. And what we saw at Portugal, and I'm talking in the late 80s, early 90s, we really enjoyed it. We thought, this is really nice. The weather was good. It's definitely a cheap place to live. Things can change, of course. And so we bought a house here in 1995. We couldn't move in, of course, until I finished my career, which was 10 years later. So we had somewhere to live. We went for the Algarve. In hindsight, perhaps I would like to have explored a little bit more, which we've now had an opportunity to do. and there are other parts of Portugal which we really like as well. But anyway, we moved here to the Algarve in 2005, and then from there I was working at home with my Interpol work. I was allowed to work at home for some of it, and wherever else they sent me. So that's how the transition went from Hong Kong to Portugal.
Wow, there's a whole episode, I suspect, about your police career and being in Hong Kong at what must have been a very interesting time. And maybe you'll indulge me with that on a different occasion. But if I may pry about these other parts of Portugal that have come to your attention that you like, can you give us any secrets? Or I mean, presumably these are places you'd like to keep to yourself in some ways. But is there anything you can share with us about other parts of Portugal that you're attracted to and that you've enjoyed?
Well, I think it is places which people probably would have gone to already.
Okay.
But the Silver Coast, that area there, we find very nice indeed. Cascais, certainly, very pleasant area. And we've been also North Castelo Branco, Coimbra, enjoy a great deal, which has been there fairly recently. We work very closely with the university there, in fact. So there are several areas up north. Braga, enjoyed a great deal. So there is a lot to explore, and yes, it's very enjoyable work.
Excellent. So safe to say, your plan to be in Portugal and enjoy it has come true. What is it you especially love about this country, the culture, and its people?
Well, so the people we found people have been extremely helpful, very friendly indeed. As you say, the culture. The more you explore, the more you understand what the cultural issues are. Very good. The food, of course. I think it's very, very interesting indeed. I always thought China was a massive country because when we worked in Hong Kong, and the food, of course, was very, very different wherever you went. But the same also in Portugal. It's a much smaller country, but I like cooking and I like food anyway. So you can experience all the different foods when you go to different areas of Portugal. I enjoy that a great deal as well. And Jane, my wife, does as well.
So Portuguese food, any favourites to eat and to cook at home?
Oh, well, I do like pig's cheeks.
Do you? Right. Okay. Yes.
The chanfana, the goat, old goat dish.
Yes.
In the Coimbra area.
Yes.
And of course, you've got all this, the fish dishes in the Algarve. So there's a lot of different foods which are very, very enjoyable indeed. And it's just a case of finding out the right places and explore them.
Excellent. Now, we're drawing to a conclusion here because we usually talk for 20 or 30 minutes, and it would be great to do a part 2 with you at some point, David. I'm sure we'll always have things to talk about in relation to Portugal. And that's my final question to you, really, is knowing what you know and the service you provide and are involved with. How do you see the future of Portugal? What are your hopes? And I think in many ways, you're very close to the realities of what may occur from that preparedness point of view and climate change that you mentioned. Maybe personal hopes and how you see that mixed up with how the country is developing and where it's going and what we might be mindful of in these next few decades.
That's very a very strategic question, or very broad question in many respects.
Yes.
I mean, looking for the future is very difficult indeed. I think there is a lot that Portugal has already done. For instance, on the issue of climate change and extreme weather, which is one of the big factors that comes to which we are getting involved in now. This is going to continue. There is no doubt about it. The extreme temperatures, the increase in wildfires, unfortunately. The number of heat waves are projected to increase, and I think the government and the community, certainly the government, are embracing that now. So when it comes to a storm, this doesn't come as a surprise. It's something that we have been preparing for, planned for, and therefore can deal with in the most successful way that is possible in these very difficult situations. So it's the long-term planning is vitally important. We can't plan for next year or the year after. We have to look further ahead. And I think that is something that government is, my opinion, is something that government is doing. When people move here to Portugal, this is important. We've done several articles on this, what to look out for. We don't want to deter people from moving to Portugal, because Portugal is a fantastic place, as we know,
Yes.
and an enjoyable and a relaxing place with nice people, nice food, generally nice weather, but not all the time. But people, I think people need to be aware of the realities. Choose where you live carefully. That's very important indeed. If you're going to live in the middle of a forest, be very careful. Of course, you've got fires and things like that, but you can prepare for these things if you do your research and homework properly. So that's very important indeed. And I think Portugal, my own opinion is, it's still a relatively safe country compared with many countries. We're number, fourth or fifth on the global peace index and this sort of thing, which we're told about, we look into. We are lucky that we do not have the extremes and some of the problems that certain other European countries not too far from us have. We are very, very lucky indeed. Lucky because it's good work by the emergency services, the bomberos, of course, the police and everybody who now work very closely together. And I think therefore our Portugal has a very optimistic, a very great future, as it has, you know, for the last many hundred years. It's a great place to be, and I would definitely, if I was living in the northern areas of Europe, it's a great place to come and live.
Very good. Just as you have. Oh, that's a wonderful prognosis, a very balanced one as well. Yeah, and it reflects the ethic, really, I think, doesn't it, of Safe Communities Portugal. It is a great place to live, but be mindful, plan well, be prepared, and understand the risks. A good note. I think a good note to conclude on.
You summed up really. I think we'll put that as our mission now.
It's been great talking to you, David. Thank you so much. Look forward to chatting again, and thanks again, and all the best to you and the team at Safe Communities Portugal. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Carl. Very nice to see you. Thank you.